What's up, you guys? Welcome to a brand new episode of the Fit Women's Weekly podcast. If this is your first time tuning in, thank you so much. I hope that you enjoy what you hear and you decide to go back and listen to past episodes. You guys, we have freaking over 500 podcast episodes. That blows my mind. And if you are an OG listener or you've been listening for a long time, you know I love you guys so much. You are part of the community. Always feel free that you can speak up. Let me know your thoughts on the podcast. Let me know if you have questions or topics that you would like covered in future episodes. One last thing before we jump into this week's episode is if you do watch the podcast on YouTube and you're like, Kendall, I noticed that you didn't put out an episode last week. I actually did. It was with a very, very talented, basically the father of kettlebells after Pavel himself, and that's Keith Weber. We didn't do it with a video interview, so the podcast was released on all audio forms. So if you want to go listen to that, go listen to it wherever you enjoy listening to your podcast. And we are back for the foreseeable future of also releasing our Wednesday podcast on YouTube as well. So in today's episode, there's a couple of different topics that I want to discuss. We're going to answer a couple of listener questions, specifically on supplements and seasonal nutrition habits. And then I also want to cover a very important topic of overtraining versus overreaching. What's the difference? And is there one that you should be aware of that you should kind of put on the blinkers and the alert lights? And is there one that's just kind of part of what we're supposed to be doing if we want to see results, but we tend to take it as a sign of, oh my gosh, maybe I'm doing too much. I don't know. You'll just have to listen and wait and find out. But before we jump into this episode, please make sure to support the show. You can do that in a number of ways. You can do it simply by subscribing, leaving a review over on YouTube, leave a comment down below of what you love hearing on this podcast and what questions you would like to have covered. Ask me anything, you guys. Or you can head over to fitwomensweekly.com and try out my Fit Women's Weekly Live, which is my premier online studio training site, for free for 2 full weeks. No credit card or anything required. And you get to get in with me, and instead of us just chit-chatting once or twice a week, you can actually talk with me every day. You get training, you get live workouts. Whether you're able to do them live or not, they remain on the platform, and you're a part of a community that's not only going to keep you accountable, but it's going to hold you to your goals in order to actually see your goals. I'm going to push you. I'm going to count the reps. What I love looking back on other trainers or other old formats of exercise is when a trainer explains the workout, does a couple of reps, and then moves on, right? That's not how this goes down. I actually do every single workout from start to finish with you. I struggle, I burn out, I have to take resting breaks, all the stuff, because that's what real training is. And I would love to help you hit your goals and share that real training and my 15 years experience with you. So you can go to fitwomensweekly.com to find it out. And I am excited. We have settled on a date for our annual Summer Shred Challenge, which is my 8-week strength focused challenge. And that will start on July 10th. We will be starting to put out more information in the coming weeks. So be on the lookout because spots are going to be limited and there will be an early bird option so that you can be the first to know and the first to sign up. So I'm very, very excited about that. I've been doing it for, I guess this is probably my 13th summer shred. And every single year I try to make it better than the previous year. And every year is an amazing year. And this year I'm doing everything that I can to make sure you not only hit your goals, but surprise yourself at what you're able to do. All the tools that I have in my tool shed are coming out. So get freaking pumped for that. All right, so let's jump in to this week's episode. We're gonna cover first 2 cool questions that I received. Number 1, what are my thoughts on supplements? I think that supplements have a place, absolutely. However, before I talk about the supplements that I kind of support using, I do wanna make sure I stress one important topic. Everything mostly comes down 99.9% to the nutrition that you have in your life consistently, right? Of course, we're not going to be perfect. The lifestyle you live as far as movement, conscious exercise and effort, and sleep and stress and all that stuff. And then, of course, genetics. Those are the 3 most important components of creating a healthier lifestyle and seeing and feeling the health and the body that you want to see and feel. However, if those are in the right place, then yes, the very, very top of the triangle, the itty bitty sprinkle on top, is supplementation. If obviously you have blood work done and you are deficient in something, supplement with it, right? There's no denying that. Of course, that's going to come to your doctor, whether that is vitamin D or iron or magnesium, just to name a few. Multivitamins, very, very important, especially nowadays. We eat kind of all over the rainbow, but because of the state of our soil, it's not always the best in terms of minerals and vitamins. We want to make sure that we're getting those micronutrients in as well. So having a good, really high quality multivitamin can help. That's why I take athletic greens, and then also a protein supplement, because most women don't hit their protein goals. And if you are active and you are working out, you need more than just the recommended 0.6 grams of protein per pound of body weight. You're trying to focus on having the healthiest metabolism, having muscle mass, because especially as we get older, I am now at the age of what's called sarcopenia, where your muscle mass naturally declines. And I want to keep my muscle mass. So I want to make sure that I'm focusing on getting my protein each day, which is about 1 gram per pound of body weight, which I do that pretty easily, but I do use a protein supplement in order to help with that. Other supplements that are shown to be efficient could also be creatine. Most women do need creatine. It can be really beneficial for cardio health as well as muscle mass, so definitely something to look in. Other things, obviously, do your own research. They're most likely not going to help that much, but I'm also a believer that if you think it's helping and it's not doing you any harm, then it's not hurting you either. So yeah, supplements are fine. Just choose wisely. And of course, caffeine is the most overused supplement in the world. There's nothing wrong with caffeine. I drink my caffeine. Go for it. We all need that little energy boost, and there are actual benefits to caffeine aside from just the energy, which I have talked about in past episodes. So yeah, I'm not against supplements, just making sure that I take the right supplements and that I research it before I just put it into my body. I don't try to toss just crap into my body. Make sure you're having high quality, make sure you're having the ones that actually support your system, and also talk to a doctor if you need to before starting something new. And then the second question that I received is based upon just the season of life. And really by season of life, I mean the seasons. They asked me if it's normal to go through periods where you're just not craving healthier foods, where you're finding yourself not craving meat as much, or maybe lighter versions of meat like chicken breast and fish over steak and ground meat. And yes, that is absolutely normal, especially as we're moving from the winter into the spring. As temperatures rise, we do have a physiological response to that. And as part of that, we do find ourselves craving lighter meals because our body is working hard to keep ourselves, or not working as hard to keep ourselves warm like it does in the cold. So yeah, it's totally natural to all of a sudden find yourself craving more salads and crunchy vegetables and lighter protein options like fish. During this time of year, I really crave white fish. And then chicken thighs, chicken breasts, instead of having the roast and the potatoes and the corn and the starches. So absolutely, it is a time period, but make sure if you find yourself in that boat that maybe you're tracking during this time to still make sure that you're focusing on getting the protein that you need in your day-to-day life. Just something to think about. But yes, it's absolutely normal. During this time of year, I crave more vinaigrettes, more citrus, a lot of lemon. I am actually really craving lately zucchini. I have not been a zucchini person for the past few years. And now that I've reintroduced vegetables back into my nutrition after being carnivore, zucchini is my go-to vegetable. And I've been eating a lot more chicken as well, and a lot more canned fish and oysters. So take that as you will, but yeah, totally normal for me as well. All right, so now let's get into the meat of the podcast, and that is overtraining versus overdoing, aka overreaching. So what is overreaching? Because that's not a topic that's often discussed. We've heard overtraining before in a way that you should be worried, right? Are you overtraining it? Are you overdoing it? Are your cortisol off the charts because you're overtraining? But what about overreaching? This is where most people fall in. And overreaching just simply means when your muscles are more sore from what you normally experience because you didn't rest sufficiently between workouts. It generally happens from doing back-to-back hard workouts, or you end up feeling sore and run down, or it happens when you take a break from working out and all of a sudden you start working out again, or maybe you're starting a new program. Whatever the case may be, you wake up and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't move, I'm so sore. And overreaching is really easy to deal with. You simply rest for a day or two and then you get going again. And in fact, a lot of times when you are overreached and you're still a little bit sore, doing some exercise following it up the next day can actually be really, really good. Have you ever worked out really hard, you're so sore, but then the following day you get out and maybe you go for a jog or a light workout with some lighter weights, you go for a walk, and at the end of it, you actually feel a lot better. But overtraining happens when you ignore the signs and symptoms of overreaching and you just keep pushing through your workouts. Recovery from overtraining can actually be really hard. It can take weeks or even months and could include taking a complete break from working out. And obviously, if someone falls into the overtraining category, that can be really hard, not only physically on them, because they're so used to moving, but also mentally hard, because most people that fall into the overtraining category use exercise as a coping mechanism, whether that is to deal with stress, maybe it is some kind of exercise addiction, maybe they're trying to get away from something else in their life, they're using it because it gets them their happy endorphins, and they're trying to fight off anxiety and depression, again, a coping mechanism. And so for them to have to take time off, it can be like, whoa, what do you want me to do? And yes, your girl right here can completely understand what that is like. So let's just change up a little bit. We'll come back full circle. But is it okay to overreach? Yes, sometimes to some extent. So keep in mind that being tired and sore from your workouts is normal, and it's part of training that's required if you are trying to make progress, right? If you want to see progress, you have to take your body outside of its comfort zone. You have to make it go, oh my God, what are you doing? I need to adapt to this so that if you put me in this situation again, I can handle it, right? That's what exercise is all about in terms of trying to build muscle and to build endurance. So because during a training period, you might be pushing progressively, overloading, you might not see your full progress in real time because you're overreaching continuously, right? You're doing your training program. Maybe instead of taking a day in between, your body technically needs 48 hours. But even though, and that's why you're never really going during a progressive block at 100%, right? You generally don't really go over if you're lifting over a 90% during a training block because you're already over pushing yourself by doing back-to-back workouts. But you want to see your full progress. So that's why every 8 weeks or so, you do something like a deload week where you take time off for recovery and then your real progress is then seen because all the hard work that you've done the previous 8 to 12 weeks before can now finally fully recover. And then as you start your new training block, or maybe that's even going to be a race or some sort of event, you're able to see all of your hard work paying off. So that's why runners, weightlifters, and many athletes in general taper right before an event. So that's their deload week. Me personally, I run this studio in 8-week chunks most of the time. And so that means that every 8 weeks, we test out of skill and then we take a deload week before starting a new time. It's also really important to also just mentally give yourself a break from pushing hard all the time. Now, let me stress something out real fast. If you're taking a deload week or a taper week, for most people, that doesn't mean taking a full week off and doing absolutely nothing. It just means simply decreasing the intensity so that you're not pushing your body, you're decreasing your volume as well, so that your body has a time to catch up. So I'm still taking my body through workouts, I'm still sweating, but instead of focusing on heavy weights, I go a lot lighter, maybe even focusing on just body weight for a week before I then jump into something else that's gonna push me outside of my comfort zone and get me into another progressive overload training program. So one other little thing that I wanna focus on is that this overreaching time is when you're gonna find yourself working hard and pushing your limits and working out on tired legs or tired arms. And that's okay. You're not gonna lose your legs, you're not gonna lose your benefits, you're not gonna go into overtraining if you're doing it in a smart way. So a lot of times people will say, I don't wanna strength train because I'm training for a half marathon and I find that my strength training gives me tired legs. That's okay, because guess what? On marathon day or half marathon day, you're gonna find out that you have to run on tired legs. So by running on tired legs during your training program, you're setting yourself up for better results at the end. Does that make sense? So all that to say, overreaching is actually a good thing. It's actually required as long as you are giving yourself intermittent breaks and rest between workouts and between sessions to allow yourself to fully recover. However, when you don't do that and you just keep pushing and never back off, then you're going to go from overreaching to overtraining. And this is the part that very few people actually get to, though I feel like a lot of people try to say that they are overtraining when really they're just overreaching. But overtraining is actually a really serious issue. And some signs related to it are, when it comes to training specifically, unusual muscle soreness after a workout that continues on throughout your training process, the inability to train or complete as previously manageable. So what you were once able to do, all of a sudden you find out that you're not able to do. Maybe you're taking more rest. Maybe you physically can't lift a weight that you used to be able to. Specifically, having heavy leg muscles, even at decreased intensity, kind of where you're left thinking to yourself, why am I so tired? Why do my legs feel like they have bricks on them for shoes, right? When again, in the past, it would be something that never bothered you before, and all of a sudden you're just not feeling like yourself. Delays in recovery from training, performance plateaus or even declines, and then mentally, thoughts of skipping or cutting your training session short when that's not your norm. In the past, maybe you loved going in and you're like, I can't wait to have this 60-minute workout all to myself. And then when you go into a phase of overtraining, you look at the doors of your gym and go, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be here. And if that's not something normal for you, because most of us do have days where we're not motivated, but we don't often have days where like, I don't want to do this at all, right? And so if that's not your norm and all of a sudden you start having those thoughts, it's time to question, what has your training been like? How long have you been consistently pushing yourself so hard? Maybe it is time for that deload week, maybe even 2 weeks. Some lifestyle-related signs of overtraining: prolonged fatigue or fogginess, increase in tension, depression, anger, confusion, or anxiety. So when you once started using fitness to help with those things, all of a sudden, it's not helping anymore, and your symptoms are coming back in tenfold. The inability to relax, that feeling of you always have to be moving. You're having crappy sleep, but yet you're always fatigued. You have lack energy, decreased motivation, and you're moody. And just not feeling joy from the things that you used to once feel enjoyable. Like, fitness is supposed to make your life better, not worse. So if all of a sudden you're not getting joy to it and you're not finishing a workout going, oh man, I'm so glad I did that, right? Because not every workout starts off with those feelings, but I would say 95% of the time I finish a workout going, I feel so good about myself because I did that, right? But if you're finishing a workout and you're still feeling really crappy about it, then it's time to peek into your training and maybe make some changes. And then the health-related symptoms of overtraining include increased occurrences of illness. Your immune system plummets down, which is why a lot of people get sick after long endurance events like a marathon or an ultra marathon. For my ultra last month, I focused so much on nutrition and hydration and resting afterwards to make sure that my immune system stayed as healthy as I can, because it's naturally going to decline from putting that stress on your body, but you want to make sure to take care of yourself so that you're not around the bugs, so that you don't get sick. Increased blood pressure and at-rate heart rate. I have mentioned this before, that my heart rate is pretty much the only real data that I look at in my Fitbit, because I can tell by looking at my heart rate. I know what my normal is. I know that by the end of the week that I have overreached it and my heart rate comes up. And then I know that taking my Sunday rest day, my heart rate comes back down so that I can start the next week ready to rock and roll. But I have had periods of time where all of a sudden my resting heart rate, which is normally around a 54, goes up. Like last month after the ultra, it stayed in the mid 60s for a good 2 weeks or so before it finally started to come down. So if I had just kept on pushing, knowing that my heart rate was up, I would have then risked going into an overtraining mode and switching from overreaching to overtraining and just pushing through, and then all of these symptoms could have become an issue as well. Irregular menstrual cycles or missing your period. You guys know I've also had that in my past. Weight loss, appetite loss, or even weight gain from hormonal fluctuations, and then constipation and or diarrhea. So it's really hard because it can be on this side of the spectrum or on the far right, but anytime you're not in the normal of regular bowel movements, is something off, something could be going on. If you're normally aware of what your appetite is and you're in tune with your body and all of a sudden you're either ravenous or you're not hungry at all, then you know something's going on, and those are things that you want to look at. For me personally, I have at one point in my life gone through all of these things, mostly in my younger 20s when I really battled my exercise addiction. Not only this, but I also dealt with a lot of injuries that I should have been able to avoid, such as stress fractures. I have had 2 stress fractures. I have had significant hair loss. I have had aches and pains that refuse to go away. I've had my stress fractures. I had one in my foot in my mid-20s, and then I had one in my tibia in my early 20s. And yeah, overtraining is not fun. I went through most of my 20s without a period from working out way too much. And that is your first sign that your body is not working at its appropriate level, right? Because that is the thing that unfortunately, we're animals and our bodies are meant to reproduce, whether we have children or not. You guys know I don't have kids, so I feel like I'm allowed to talk like this, but at the heart of it, my body was created to have children. We are animals. That's what animals do, is reproduce. So if you are not able to have a regular menstrual cycle because of the lifestyle choices that you're making, that is a sign that you are not healthy and you need to get it under control. So overreaching, what most people do. Most people know to take a day or 2 from rest. Overtraining, super serious issue. Go get your blood work done, talk to your doctor, back off of your training, and remind yourself that this is good for you to take time off. I've had to give myself those mental talks off and on over the past 20 years, and it is hard because you find joy in moving your body, and you also kind of worry, like, if I don't work out like I normally do, what will happen, right? But here's the thing, nothing bad is going to happen. Only good things will happen if you are in a state where you are doing too much and you're no longer getting the benefits that you need. You've got to get yourself back to a healthy baseline, and then you can start creating healthy habits with your exercise to get the results that you want for your body and your overall health. It's kind of like an overall reset, right? It's really hard for most people to go from 100, if you're doing too much, to back down to giving 75%, which is what we should be giving, right? Instead, what overtrainers need to do is go from 100, well, I guess we should be, because we're overtraining, we should be going from 100 and let's say 25% down to 50% of maybe just walking during the day, focus on having healthy nutrition, getting regular sleep in, having that for a couple of weeks, if not months, and then saying, I think I'm ready to recreate a healthy lifestyle for myself, so that you're having more of a dip versus just trying to linear come in, because mentally that can be really hard for us. So there you go, you guys. Overtraining versus overreaching. Have you been in either of those categories before? If you've never overreached, you gotta do it, right? If every single workout you do, you're like, this is so easy breezy, I've never been sore, you're probably also not seeing the strength gains that you really wanna see. So it's time to try something else. Fit Women's Weekly Live at fitwomensweekly.com. And then if you have overtrained before or you're currently overtraining, reach out to somebody. Feel free to email me, DM me, Kendall Boyle Fitness over on Instagram, and I would be happy to talk to you more, kind of give you more of my story, give you that little pep talk that maybe you need. I'm happy to be here for you guys. Just remember, I am a personal trainer and a nutrition coach. I am not a doctor, but this is something that I'm really passionate about and something that I continuously focus on myself to make sure I don't go back to those levels that I was at in my 20s and 30s, where I was obsessive about more movement is better. It didn't cure my anxiety. It just made things worse. It didn't help my relationship. It made things very tight and tense, and it didn't help my body. So it feels really good after all these years to be in a really good place, mindset-wise and physical-wise and strength-wise and all the things. And I love sharing that story with you guys as well. I never hold back. All right, guys, thank you so much. Remember, if you like the podcast, support it by one of the ways that I mentioned before. Subscribe, leave a review or a comment. Head over to fitwomensweekly.com and try out Fit Women's Weekly Live. I would love to be your personal trainer, help you daily. You have access to me, not just for workouts. You can ask me questions. You can get training advice. I am here for you. And that way, too, you'll also be in the lineup to sign up for the Summer Shred Challenge, because even current members doesn't mean that they're guaranteed to get into the challenge as well. Challenge spots are absolutely limited. So I am excited to share more about that in the future episodes. And then you can also do a buy me a coffee. I understand that some of you guys have amazing programs that you are loving right now, and that's great. So that you're not interested in Fit Women's Weekly, but you still love to connect, you still love the conversations that we have, you still love the content that I put out. And if that's you, just click the link for buy me a coffee and you can support the Fit Women's Weekly brand, because that's what we're growing here, you guys. An amazing brand, an amazing community, and every little bit helps. All right, I am out of here. I gotta go get some more work done. I gotta go plan out my workout for Fit Women's Weekly Live. All right, bye.